Hello students, today we'll discuss on the topic theories of punishment. Let us now start with introduction. Protection of lives and property is a primary function of a state. Similarly, another important function of the state is the maintenance of peace and order in the society, which is essential for human beings to live peacefully and without fear of injury to their lives, limbs and property. These functions can be fulfilled only when the penal law of the state is effective and strong enough to deal with the violators of law. Penal law prohibits harmful human conducts and also provides for punishment of persons committing such acts. One of the basic objectives of criminal justice administration is to protect the society against criminals by punishing them under the existing penal law. The term punishment is used to describe societal treatment of wrongdoers. It is the authoritative imposition of something unpleasant or undesirable on a person in response to a behavior deemed unacceptable by society. In strict legal sense of the term, punishment is the legal process whereby violators of criminal law are condemned and sanctioned in accordance with specified legal categories and procedures. It is used in response to a criminal activity, that is, an activity that breaks the official laws of the state. Punishment involves an infliction of pain or forfeiture on an offender by the judicial arm of the state. A person is said to be punished when some pain or detriment or deprivation is inflicted on him or her, which may range from mere fine to imprisonment, even with a death penalty. Now let us discuss why punishment. There are many situations in which people wish to punish another. When a person is unjustly harmed through assault or robbery, people have a strong desire to punish the offender. What is the source of this motivation, the justification for this behavior? In other words, why do we punish someone? There are two broad justifications for the use of punishment. One perspective holds that when an individual intentionally commits a crime, the scales of justice are out of balance, and punishment of the offender restores this balance. The offender deserves to be punished in proportion to the past harm he or she committed. The punishment is an end in itself and needs no further justification. This approach is typically referred to as desert perspective. The other perspective holds that social harmony is best served by the prevention of future harm, and that the justification for punishment lies in its ability to minimize the likelihood of future harms. General prevention is the main purpose of punishment, and this approach is referred to as utilitarian perspective. Thus, while seeking to answer the question, why do we punish someone, we found some important points. Number 1, criminals deserve to be punished. Number 2, punishment will prevent criminals from committing further crimes. Number 3, it discourages others from committing criminal acts. Number 4, it protects society from dangerous or dishonest people. 5, it also tells the society that laws are not to be violated. Now let us discuss on the theories of punishment. It is well settled that punishment of criminals is inevitable for protection of the society, and almost all the legal systems of the world recognize the importance of punishment. In other words, Punishment seeks to prevent criminals from committing new crimes, influence insecure members of the society, deter potential offenders from committing crimes, and adjust offenders to the society. Different theories of punishment are propounded based on these objects of punishment. Four important theories of punishment, along with their criticisms, are discussed as under. Number 1. Retributive theory. Vengeance is the basis of this theory, and punishment is an expression of societal disapprobation for offenders' criminal act. The idea behind this theory is that the person who has caused suffering or harm to another should be made to realize the same. That is, evil should be returned to him who is responsible for the evil, without any regard to consequences. Thus, the pain to be inflicted on the offender by way of punishment was to outweigh the pleasure derived by him from the crime. According to the exponents of this theory, if the criminals are treated very leniently or even in the midst of luxury, as the Reformative Theory would have it, the spirit of vengeance will not be satisfied and it might find its way through private vengeance. Therefore, punishment, instead of preventing a crime, might indirectly promote it. Thus, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is a complete and self-sufficient rule of natural justice. Another interpretation of the retributive theory is to consider punishment as a form of expiation. To suffer punishment is to pay a debt due to the law that has been violated. According to this perspective, the penalty of wrongdoing is a debt which the offender owes to his victim, and when punishment has been endured, the debt is paid, and the legal bond forged by the crime is dissolved. Therefore, the object of true punishment must be to substitute justice for injustice. However, when we analyze this theory, we find that the retributive theory has very little support in modern times. Critics of this theory observe that retribution is in itself not a remedy for the mischief of the crime, but an aggravation of it. This theory is also criticized on the ground that it ignores the causes of the crime and it hardly attempts to remove the causes. A mere moral indignation can hardly prevent crimes. It is quite possible that the criminal is as much a victim of circumstances as the victim himself might have been. Thus, reformation of the criminal is completely ignored by this theory. Now let us discuss the deterrent theory. According to deterrent theory, punishment should be inflicted in such a manner that it should deter or prevent not only the offender but also others from following his example. Punishment is said to be deterrent when its object is to show the futility of crime and thereby teach a lesson to other persons. Therefore, severe form of punishment is called for so that it will deter other prospective criminals from committing such a crime by fear of consequences that might happen to them. It aims at giving a warning to the society at large that crime does not pay. Further, the exponents of this theory are of the view that offenses are the result of a conflict between the interests of the wrongdoer and those of society. The aim of punishment is to dissolve this conflict of interest by making every offense an ill bargain to the offender. Long-term sentences and death penalty are regarded as a very potent weapons of deterrent theory. Light and non-custodial sentences have very little, if any, deterrent effect either to the actual offender or those who may commit such crimes in the future. This theory has also some negative points. The critics of this theory have pointed out that severity of punishment does not reduce crime rate. Habitual offenders and hardened criminals cannot be deterred by severity of punishment. It also fails to deter ordinary criminals because many crimes are committed in a spur of moment without any prior intention or design. Some crimes, such as crimes of passion and crimes committed while under the influence of intoxicating substances, cannot be deterred because their perpetrators do not rationally weigh the benefits versus the costs, which include punishment before breaking the law. Now let us discuss preventive theory. The preventive theory of punishment aims at preventing a crime by disabling the criminal himself. The idea is to remove an offender from society, making it physically impossible or at least very difficult to commit further crimes against the public while serving a sentence. It is based on the proposition not to avenge crime but to prevent it. The theory suggests that prisonization is the best mode of crime prevention as it seeks to separate offenders from society, thus disabling them from repeating crime. It seeks to prevent recurrence of crime by incapacitating the offenders. It presupposes some kind of physical restraint on offenders. Preventive mode of punishment has a twofold impact. Firstly, it overrules all prospective wrongdoers with fear of punishment. And secondly, it disables the wrongdoer for committing crime again. The critics of this theory observe that it treats a man as a thing, not as a person, as a means, not as an end in itself. Detention of a criminal for a longer time in a jail, instead of diminishing, enhances the criminal spirit of that offender. The idea of prevention of crime is simply fail as the wrongdoer while in prison learn many criminal behavior from other criminals. Further, this theory has nothing to do with the cases where an offender commits a crime under the psychological stress or with a political ambition. It is the certainty of punishment and not its severity which has a real effect on offenders. And now let us discuss reformative theory. According to this theory, crime is like a disease and therefore punishment should be curative, medicinal, clinical, and educative rather than inflicting of physical injury or pain upon the wrongdoer. Exponents of this theory are of the view that a wrongdoer's stay in prison should be utilized to re-educate him and to reshape his personality in a new mold. This theory takes into account the factors which compel the offender to commit crime. It concentrates not only on crime but on criminal, his personality and all other related factors which led him to do wrong, and then try to eradicate the criminal tendency by providing education to him. The reformative theory suggests that punishment is only justifiable if it looks to the future and not to the past. The supporters of this theory justify prisonization not solely for the purpose of isolating criminals and eliminating them from society, but to bring about a change in their mental outlook through effective measures of reformation during the term of their sentence. Thus, the ultimate aim of the reformists is to try to bring about a change in the personality and character of the offender, so as to make him a useful member of society again. When we look at the negative aspect of this theory, we find certain limitations in its application. Its application is limited in the sense that it cannot be applied in cases of habitual offenders and hardened criminals because it is not easy to change habits of these people. Moreover, it is not possible to determine how an offender will behave when he is released. Reformative treatment is more likely to succeed in educated and orderly societies than in turbulent or underdeveloped societies. Whereas reformation is an important element of punishment, it cannot be made the sole and in itself. Prisoners must be made to realize that some wrongs have been done by him. Otherwise, punishment, for that matter criminal justice system, would become a farce. They must also be made to experience some degree of hardship and rigor so that they are always reminded of their bitter experiences of institutional life after release, which will help in keeping them from repetition of criminal acts. And finally, to conclude this discussion, punishment can be used as a method of reducing the incidence of criminal behavior, either by deterring the potential offenders or by incapacitating the preventing offenders from repeating the offenses or by reforming them into law-abiding citizens. It is also clear from above discussion that only a single theory of punishment cannot fulfill the objective of administration of criminal justice. These theories are not mutually exclusive. In some cases, it has to be retributive, in others, deterrent and preventive, while in some other cases, it is to be reformative. It is only through an effective combination of two or more of these theories that an ideal penal program can be drawn to combat crimes. It is not the severity of punishment, but certainty of it, which has a real effect on offenders. Punishment should always serve as a measure of social defense. Punishment should not be regarded as an end in itself, but only as a means, the end being the social security and rehabilitation of the offender in society. Thank you.